This is Nightly Business Report with Sue Herrera and Bill Griffin.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Nightly Business Report.
Memorial Day, of course, is considered the unofficial start to the summer season. It's the time of year when you hit the road or the airport and head off on vacation.
So tonight, since the market is closed, we decided to do something different and take a look at the condition of those roads and airports and other parts of America's infrastructure.
But before we do that, we want to talk about the stock market first. Every year when the weather does turn warmer, investors are reminded of an old Wall Street adage, sell in May and go away. But as Bob Pisani reports now, that strategy is being tested this year.
Sell in May and go away. You know, it's that time of year again, but this year you may not want to sell and get out, maybe not just yet. The best 6-month strategy has become legendary on Wall Street. Sell in May and go away means investing in the Dow Jones Industrial Average between November 1st and April 30th, then cashing out, switching into fixed income for the next 6 months. That has dramatically outperformed just owning the Dow from May 1st to October 31st. So here's an example. If you invested $10,000 in the Dow in 1950 from May 1st to October 31st, you'd end up with a little over $11,000 today. That's a measly gain of a little over $1,000 in 69 years. But if you invested the same $10,000 from November 1st to April 30th, you would have a return of over $1 million. That's according to the Stock Traders Almanac. That's huge. And by the way, it's the power of compounding interest. So why does the Dow do better between November and May than between May and November? Well, first, there are some clear seasonal trends in market trading. There's slower trading activity in the summer, back to school, end of the third quarter portfolio window dressing that's caused stocks to sell off in September and sometimes October, which is why September and sometimes October typically bad months for the year. But when you move into November, companies' efforts in the fourth quarter to beef up their numbers can help drive the market higher, as do holiday shopping and an influx of year-end bonus money. The bottom line is this: sell in May does not necessarily mean May will be down or even that the next 6-month periods will be down. Doesn't mean that. The point is that most of the market's gains occur November through April, and that the market tends to drift sideways and is more prone to sell-offs in the May through October period. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.
So with summer unofficially here, many of us will head out on vacation. The problem? Our infrastructure is crumbling. We have several reports on that issue tonight, and we start with the backbone of the economy, roads and bridges. Frank Holland is in Columbus, Ohio.
Our roads getting a D in the most recent report card of America's infrastructure. The primary reasons: congestion and structural deficiencies.
Our transportation network, I think, is slowing in some ways our economy and making it less efficient.
The estimated impact by 2025, more than $2.3 trillion in business sales lost, more than $1.2 trillion in lost GDP, and more than 1 million lost jobs.
It becomes the inability of the economy to grow at the rate at which it should grow.
The nation's bridges getting a C+ from the American Society of Civil Engineers in its Failure to Act report. That study also estimating there will be a funding gap of more than $1 trillion by 2025, half the money needed to fix our roads and bridges. And taxpayers will likely pay for problems one way or another.
That motorists on average in this country spend about $600 a year in additional maintenance on their cars just because of the poor road conditions.
Driverless cars are expected in coming years. Here outside of Columbus, Ohio, on US 33, they are preparing by lining the roadway with fiber optics like these and building a 35-mile Wi-Fi highway that can connect with the cars of the future.
At the end of US 33 is the Transportation Research Center, where connected and autonomous vehicle technology is being tested to make it safer. The state also investing in smart lights like these, designed to send and receive data from vehicles.
Warning, red light ahead.
Ultimately, our goal is to eliminate the serious crashes at these intersections. 20% of all our fatals in Ohio occur at these intersections. So this technology has the ability to eliminate them, not reduce, but ultimately eliminate them once all the vehicles and the signals are outfitted with the technology.
Nationally, fatal crashes have increased by 7% over the past 5 years.
The cost to the economy of those fatalities and crashes is billions and billions of dollars, and that's something we also can address through improving our infrastructure.
The cost for families, even greater. For Nightly Business Report, Frank Holland in Columbus, Ohio.
In fact, more Americans will be hitting the road this summer. According to GasBuddy's 2019 summer travel survey, nearly 75% of Americans say they are planning a classic road trip. That's a 16% increase compared to last year. But will high gasoline prices be a problem? Joining us right now, Patrick DeHaan. He's the head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. Good to see you again. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You know, some parts of the country are already paying $4 a gallon plus. How much higher could you see it happening, going higher this summer?
Well, I think, thankfully, so far, based on what we see now, gas prices have started to recede, and that may continue for the time being as the U.S. obviously continues to battle China in a trade war. And it could continue as long as there is no trade war. Refineries have ramped up production. That's allowing gas prices across much of the country to decline, and that should continue into the month of June, at least for now.
We do have a lot of headline risk, don't we, Patrick, though? I mean, Iran and the U.S., there are increased tensions there. What might the impact be if those tensions continue or ramp up a little bit?
That's right. We're looking at a summer of volatility. As you mentioned, Iran is just one of those issues that could flare up at any moment. Of course, Middle East destabilization could happen as a result. We've already seen some rumors, some sabotage in Saudi Arabia. So the market's very on edge, and that certainly could cause gas prices to flare back up as we progress towards the end of the summer. And keep in mind that on top of that, in July and August, U.S. Atlantic hurricane season really starts to ramp up as well. So there could be additional price pressure for motorists towards the mid and end of the summer.
By the way, 75% of Americans planning a road trip. That's a 16% increase over last year. Have you asked anybody why this year? Why the sudden interest in road trips?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the strength of the U.S. economy. A lot of us are complaining about the second largest rise seasonally in gas prices ever. That 67-cent increase in the national average from the start of the year is only second to 2011's increase. But the resiliency of the U.S. economy is continuing to drive interest in hitting the road this summer, even as gas prices have gone up.
So you need to shop around, I would think.
Absolutely. If you're hitting the road this summer, gas prices all over the map, still over $4 a gallon in much of California, whereas it could be in the low $2 a gallon range in much of the South. So quite the spread this summer.
Patrick DeHaan with GasBuddy again. Thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
If flying is more of your thing, here's some unwelcome news. For the first time since late last year, domestic airfares in the U.S. are going up. Phil LeBeau has more on how much more you'll pay to fly.
If you're booking a trip in the U.S. this summer, get ready to pay more. Airlines have raised fares $5 each way on most flights in the U.S., the first industry-wide fare hike of the year.
We've seen prices increasing since April, and we expect them to continue increasing until about mid-June, end of June, and then they'll slowly fall back down until the early fall.
With a typical domestic round-trip ticket going for just under $230, the average airfare today is still far lower than a few years ago, partially because ultra-low-cost airlines like Spirit have added more routes and flights. So traditional airlines have responded by offering more low-priced basic economy fares. And overall, the industry has steadily added more flights, and that is holding down fares. The big question is what impact, if any, will be felt by American, United, and Southwest parking more than 70 Boeing 737 MAX airplanes, forcing them to adjust their schedules.
So what we're seeing them do is shift capacity to their highest demand routes and cut back or cancel routes in the short term that are lower demand.
Which means airfares on high demand routes like LA to New York may not go up much. But on a route like Pittsburgh to LA, flights may be trimmed because there's not as much demand. So fares there could go up. Overall, airfares remain relatively low, but passengers are finding they're paying more for certain parts of their trip, like checking bags. In the last year, many airlines have raised the cost of checking a bag from $25 to $30. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
Adding to the issue, many of the nation's airports are getting busier and upgrades are badly needed. But a handful are building new, better terminals. Phil LeBeau also has us covered on that front as well from New Orleans.
The big addition at New Orleans Airport is almost done. A $1 billion terminal with 35 gates and plenty of restaurants and space to handle the city's surging air traffic. Since 2009, the number of people flying out of New Orleans has jumped more than 50%, topping 6 million travelers in 2017.
As this market continues to grow, we're in better position to handle the growth in this market. And also, we've done this in a way that keeps the cost per plane passengers to airlines on the low side.
New Orleans Airport, like others in the U.S., is bursting at the seams. Airlines have added more flights to feed America's appetite for travel. Increasingly, tarmacs are crowded, terminals are packed, and airports are struggling to keep up with booming business.
In terms of new airports in America, well, we haven't seen one built in decades. And you go to China, all they're doing is building rail and airports. These are economic engines for the economy of these countries, and we are way, way far behind.
Some airports like New York's LaGuardia and Salt Lake City are building all new terminals, while Dallas has added more gates, upgraded facilities to handle more flights and passengers. But billions more is needed, and travelers are tired of going through old, worn-down airports.
Oh, it's very important. Great dining. We need shopping. We need comfortable places. We need places to be able to have our phones, places to take our kids when we're having to wait for delayed flights.
You have like a long layover and there's just nowhere to eat or kind of to hang out and just stuck sitting on the ground.
When this new terminal in New Orleans is finished later this year, it will cap a 5-year project. But it won't be the end of airport construction in the U.S., as more cities realize they'll need to expand to handle more people flying. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, New Orleans.
As the weather heats up, everybody needs water handy. But another area in need of upgrading is the nation's water system. And as Contessa Brewer tells us, some agencies aren't waiting for the federal government to take action. She is in Bridgewater, New Jersey for us tonight.
Thousands of dams and levees are on the brink of failure, and the drinking water for millions of Americans is at risk. The nation's water infrastructure system gets a grade of D by the American Society of Civil Engineers, which blames failures in investment, leadership, and planning.
What's required is really good planning.
But New York City's tackling the problem of aging infrastructure. Much of the system is at least a century old, but it's spending nearly $20 billion over 10 years on projects to repair, maintain, and improve the water and wastewater infrastructure. The Delaware Aqueduct brings water from the Catskill Mountains to the city. It's the world's longest tunnel, but it's old.
We have a leak. So we're going through fixing that right now. It provides a capacity of about 900 million gallons a day. And the project altogether is going to cost us about $1.5 billion to get this fixed done.
New York City has the money to pay for these kind of repairs because it's operated by an independent water agency that sets the rates customers pay and a finance authority that sells bonds to raise capital money. New York's rates are 15% lower than the national average, in part because there's almost no costs associated with pumping and filtration.
We're definitely the world leader in source water protection.
New York is not alone in trying to stay ahead of the infrastructure curve. American Water is the nation's largest publicly traded water company, operating in 46 states. It's spending $8.5 billion over the next 5 years, upgrading treatment plants, replacing thousands of miles of water mains.
Many of those projects are tied to resiliency. With the climate variability that we're starting to see across the nation, in the world, frankly. It's very challenging to make sure that we can get through those climate issues, through those natural disasters, and make sure that we can still sustain service to our customers.
That means investment in flood control barriers and levees, in new reservoirs like this one in Bel Air, Maryland, to collect stormwater when it's available and distribute it during dry times. It means grappling with chemical contaminants showing up coast to coast.
We routinely test for compounds that are not regulated, and we actually install treatment for compounds before they're regulated if we know that they're there.
This complicated task of repairing, improving, maintaining the nation's water systems requires big money. And in fact, an advocacy group, the American Water Works Association, estimates it will take $1 trillion for drinking water alone. And the American Society of Civil Engineers says Americans need to pay rates and fees that accurately reflect the true cost of infrastructure. In Bridgewater, New Jersey, Contessa Brewer, Nightly Business Report.
Still ahead, a warning for entrepreneurs on how your profitable idea can be knocked off. We're going to show you one company that's now finding itself vigorously fighting imposters. But first, words of wisdom for new graduates from Apple CEO Tim Cook.
There's a saying that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. At Apple, I learned that's a total crock. You'll work harder than you ever thought possible, but the tools will feel light in your hands.
It started out as the American dream. Final Straw, which makes an environmentally friendly straw, raised nearly $2 million in crowdfunding and was even on Shark Tank. But the dream turned into a nightmare unfolding halfway around the globe in China. Andrea Day has the story.
This is Final Straw, the world's first collapsible, reusable, totally badass straw.
A totally badass idea. A straw designed to save the planet and set to make millions. Emma Cohen and co-founder Miles Pepper even pitched the idea on Shark Tank.
Not in my wildest dreams could I have ever thought that we would have done anything like that.
While attorneys worked to secure patents and trademarks for the invention, the team launched their idea on crowdfunding site Kickstarter.
We were just hoping and praying to sell enough straws that we wouldn't have to make them ourselves.
But the little straw went viral.
Within 48 hours of launching the Kickstarter, we raised over $200,000.
And it didn't take long before backers shelled out nearly $2 million in funding. But as the cash rolled in, backers weren't the only ones taking notice.
You can just, uh-oh, where'd it go?
It went here to factories in China who were ready to rip off her big idea.
It took us about 9 months to create the tooling, get the product ready to manufacture. They were able to do it in a matter of weeks.
She had no clue anything was brewing overseas until she spotted fakes for sale online at major retail sites and phony websites that even ripped off images of her dog Burrita.
These straws sold like crazy.
And there are hundreds of people that are copying the very exact product.
Amadeo Ferraro is one of the attorneys now fighting to keep Final Straw afloat.
How brazen are some of these imposters?
Absolutely brazen. They have complete disregard for all rules. I believe that they're going to do whatever they want to do and ask for forgiveness later.
On the site Alibaba, we found plenty of listings for what looked like Final Straw knockoffs. This factory saying, ready to ship to the United States for just $1 a straw. And the description looks familiar. Totally badass.
Totally badass straw.
We reached out to a woman listed as a contact for the factory, but she declined to speak with us. We sent a team from CNBC's Beijing bureau to Shenzhen, China. It's just outside of Hong Kong and where other companies are listed on Alibaba. The team discovered at least one was not at the address shown online. We tracked down a manager for another business advertising the straw online. He agreed to talk only by phone. He admits the idea for the straw that's being made at his factory came from a crowdfunding site online. Bruce Chin is a product designer in China and says even his own work has been ripped off by local factories.
Without the Chinese patent, you probably would be copycat.
We went to Kickstarter's headquarters in Brooklyn to see what advice they give new creators.
It depends on the product, but
If you're coming to Kickstarter to raise funding, you probably want to have all of your protection in place before you launch. That is very important. You know, once you launch, your product is out there in the world.
We scheduled an interview with Alibaba, but the Chinese e-commerce site canceled just hours before and sent us a statement saying in part, protecting the IP of rights holders around the world is critical to our business. We remove any IP infringing listings, period. Rights holders can enforce their IP rights outside China, U.S. patent rights on our cross-border platforms. After we contacted the online retailer, Alibaba began helping Final Straw, including removing fake listings. But it wasn't just online retailers. The fakes went viral on social media, with hundreds of posts for the copycats.
It was a photo of me with the straw, and I was furious.
And followers directed to buy knockoffs for less than half the price.
Social media is a weapon for these imposters. They can use it at their discretion however they want, and there's no body out there that's really enforcing it.
We tracked down an influencer who got paid to post an ad on her meme account. A meme account typically posts funny images or videos, and the person behind it is not always revealed. The woman who runs this one has more than 1 million followers. She agreed to talk only by phone and says she had no idea she posted for a knockoff until we reached out.
I guess if I were to have Googled it or something, I could have seen that, hey, this isn't the actual company. But, it's so hard to only do so much digging and figuring out these answers.
Joey Hickson is an Instagram influencer, and this is his manager, Justin Keller. He has 17 million followers across 3 accounts, including a meme page.
Is it tough to evaluate every post before it goes up?
Yeah, it is. And it's just a lot of work into it. And I think if you have the time and you're willing to do it, like myself and my team, then that's what separates us from other people.
But they admit it's tough to be totally sure what you're posting is the real deal.
I've seen it so many times with so many different products, and it's all about who can get there quicker, who can make it cheaper. It's just a game.
It's the industry of like vain and pictures and living that lifestyle. A lot of it's fake.
And they say meme accounts especially can be loaded with fraud.
I've been turning down more business now than ever because most of the business I get are just those phony products.
We reached out to Instagram for comment. The social media giant tells us in part, we review every IP report we receive and take action to protect rights holders when someone has used their IP without permission. And regarding influencer posts, when it comes to partnering with brands, we encourage creators to act responsibly and with integrity. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Andrea Day.
Coming up, the unique financial challenges facing some of our country's military families. But first, IBM CEO Ginny Rometty's message for new graduates at North Carolina State.
If you're going to build great technologies, like I believe we do, you have a responsibility to prepare society for them and create new pathways so lots of people from every different socioeconomic background can participate.
On this Memorial Day, we are looking at the unique challenges that face the men and women of our military. A new study shows that nearly 9 in 10 active service members worry about their personal finances. In fact, an increasing number are more concerned about meeting basic household needs than just a few years ago. Sharon Epperson takes a closer look.
Good job. Like many military families, the Wanners are used to bouncing around. They've moved 4 times in the last 12 years, most recently to Fort Meade in Maryland, all while raising a family on a single military income.
You're trying to provide for more than one person, and all of a sudden you have to furnish a house. You have new bills.
Some of those bills have been costly.
When we came back from overseas, we had to rent a car for 2 months while we waited for our other car to get shipped. And that was a massive expense.
Nearly 11,000 active duty service members and their families can shop here at the Exchange at Fort Meade. Like many military families, they face some unique challenges when it comes to managing money. Long deployments, moving expenses, cost of living adjustments, and one of the biggest hurdles facing military families today, debt.
All together?
Yes.
Eric and Jana got into trouble when they started spending extra money they received from Eric's deployment bonus while he was serving in Afghanistan.
And we got comfortable with it. So when it ended, all of a sudden it's like taking a big pay cut.
Yes, absolutely.
Marine Corps veteran and financial advisor Renee Brewer says low starting salaries and the structured world of military pay make it difficult for service members to dig themselves out of debt.
Once you get promoted, naturally you get a pay raise. But if you need to make up a $20,000 difference in a year, it's not like another service is going to knock on your door and say, let me take you in and take you up 3 rungs.
Today, most military families are more worried about money than going into battle. In a recent survey, service members and their spouses ranked financial stress as a greater concern than even deployment. For military spouses, it was the #1 worry, with 49% saying it's their top concern.
It was a struggle. We were moving things around, trying to figure out, well, what do we pay now? What do we put off?
But Brewer says, like being a good soldier, it takes financial discipline to turn it around.
You really want to throttle back lifestyle if it got out of control, get yourself back on the right path.
Now it's your turn.
That's exactly what the Wanners did.
We sat down and we made a budget together, and we stuck with it, and we didn't do anything fun because we figured it was less fun to be deeply in debt.
A valuable lesson they're hoping to pass along to their children and share with other military families. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Sharon Epperson in Fort Meade, Maryland.
Thanks for watching this special edition of Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera.
And I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.